Throughout this training, or at any time you need support, there are many ways to contact us. You can follow us on all major social media platforms or email us directly via our website, or you can click the Cancel Connect icon shown at the bottom of this slide on our website to book a consultation with one of our experts.
And now we are on Chapter 7, Stakeholders. If we studied a group of people to understand human height, we'd see a pattern like this. If we lined them up from shortest to tallest, we'd see a shape like this. Very few of the extremes and the majority clustered around the center. We'll learn more about the shape in the measure phase of the MAIC. The interesting thing is that if we are studying a group of people and their perspectives on change, we could expect to see the same pattern.
We'd expect about 15% of the people to have a negative perspective on change, about 70% to be neutral, and the remaining 15% or so totally in favor of the change. And don't get me wrong, we're not saying that short people hate change. The point is that any time we're working to improve something, it means that we intend to make some changes. All improvement requires change, but as the people on the left side of this picture will tell you, not all change is improvement.
This matters because when you are starting a project, you need to be highly in tune with those people you will rely on to make this improvement a reality. When you make changes, it will require some people to do some things differently. And they know this. And they've probably seen it done poorly before. So from the very beginning, a process improvement team must first identify who their stakeholders are and what are their perspectives on the change about to happen in the process.
Let's do a quick activity. Without pausing the video, change something about yourself. We'll give you a couple seconds now to think of something. Okay, I know we put you on the spot, but chances are pretty good that you took something off. Glasses, a ring, maybe you put your pen down. Most people perceive change as a loss. It's pretty rare to find people that perceive that change will actually add or improve things.
To properly care for our stakeholders, we need to understand who in our organization is involved in this process, who will be affected throughout the project, and as a result, potential changes. Thinking this through early in the project is the only way to have a successful implementation through to the end. There are many different levels or types of stakeholders. Some are decision makers, some are influencers, and others may have to do a part of their job differently in the future in order for our improvement to work. Regardless of their particular involvement, we need to understand their perspective and the plan to work with them throughout our project. They will have information and insight that will help us to avoid mistakes, and we need to respect and partner with them.
These basic concepts of stakeholder management are used to create a detailed stakeholder management and communication plan that's used to keep our stakeholders closely aligned from the beginning of the project all the way to the end. A simple target style diagram can be used for the team to initially identify who the stakeholders are for the project. The short project name goes in the center of the target.
The ring closest to the center is where we capture those stakeholders or stakeholder groups who are closest to the project. These are the decision makers, the one who can make or break the project. These are usually leaders in the organization or internal customers. To clarify a couple common mistakes, end customers are never considered as stakeholders. Customers are much bigger than a stakeholder.
The next layer represents stakeholders who are not necessarily decision makers. They won't make or break the project, but they certainly can have an influence on the project direction. These are usually subject matter experts or people who are heavily involved with the process. The last level identifies those stakeholders who may not have input into the decisions that the team makes. However, they'll likely be affected by the change or improvement in the process. These are the people who may have to do something differently in the new process.
Identify the stakeholders and their relation to the project is typically done with a team using a simple diagram on a whiteboard or flip chart and a bunch of sticky notes. When the team has identified their stakeholders and placed them in the appropriate ring on a diagram, the next step is to assess the current perspective of each with regard to the project. This is not a scientific assessment, and it's also not an emotional activity, but it is necessary, and it's an early step to identify how to best work with your stakeholders.
The team will discuss each stakeholder or stakeholder group, and using their current knowledge, they'll identify the stakeholder as either negative, neutral, or supportive. Negative means that they're actively against the work of the project team, or that they have demonstrated that they do not intend to cooperate with the project.
Our premise is always that if the stakeholder currently has a negative perspective, then they have a good reason for that. Most people who are not in support of change have a fear of us breaking something important along the way, or making changes without enough information for the people who work in the process every day and who truly know how it works. It probably goes without saying, but this assessment has nothing to do with your personal opinion of someone. Rather, it is all about understanding their perspective on a specific project. We don't identify someone as negative because we don't like the color of their shoes.
A neutral perspective indicates that they're neither negative nor particularly supportive. These are the "I'll believe it when I see it" people. And the supporters are actively engaged and supportive of the project work. The team won't always know the current perspective of every stakeholder, and when they don't, it's an action item for them to find out.
So once the team has identified the current view, the next step is to identify the desired view. Now, every stakeholder doesn't have to be a cheerleader for the project. We don't need 100% of our stakeholders to be supporters. Sometimes neutral is good enough, as long as it's not all neutral. If we have critical stakeholders who is currently negative and the team agrees that we need them to be supportive, then the team has some work to go and do. And similarly, if we have a stakeholder exactly where we need them to be, then the team has to determine how to keep them there and not to lose their support.
So, pulling these concepts together, the team will create something that looks like this. Stakeholders identified on the stickies, and where the team had knowledge, they have used a minus, a 0, and a plus sign to indicate the current and desired perspectives. For example, looking at the decision makers ring, we can see that all of the critical stakeholders are currently neutral, but the team agrees that they need to be supportive. Looking at the outer ring, those affected by the project, we see 2 stakeholders who are currently supportive, and the team would like to keep them there.
When identifying stakeholders, typically the further out you go in the diagram, you are more likely to be dealing with groups rather than individuals. Although this is not a hard and fast rule. But when do you group stakeholders together? The whole objective of this activity is for us to ultimately create a plan to communicate with and engage with our stakeholders. So if we have a group of 10, let's say customer care reps, and they all reasonably share the same perspective, then we can group them all together as a stakeholder, just like they did in the example. However, if we have multiple facets within that group, differing perspectives that will require different messaging and a different approach, then we'll want to separate them out.
This type of diagram is also known as the onion model or onion diagram. Using the tool in this way is a form of structured brainstorming. The team collaborates, builds on each other's ideas, and shares it in an organized fashion. With the raw work done, the next step is to transfer the whiteboard data to the stakeholder plan template. This is a 2-part template. Page 1 is a summary, a list of all the project stakeholders, and then page 2 is where we capture specific messages for each. We'll create a compelling case using data, examples, and context that's meaningful for the stakeholder.
So in your workbook, you'll see a full picture of this template. Let's walk through the elements now. On page 1, you'll notice light green fields. These fields have drop-down lists to easily make your selection. Light yellow fields indicate that it's a free-form field. The fields on this form are stakeholder names. Relation to project, the options are decision maker, influencer, or affected. Current view, that's a negative, neutral, or supportive, and desired view.
Drawbacks and opportunities is a place to capture the team's summary of how this project may affect the stakeholder. What are the drawbacks if this project is not successfully completed? What are the opportunities if it is? This may take some research and some thought to understand the perspective of the stakeholder, but it's a critical step to ensure that your project has the best chance of success.
Strategy identifies the high-level plan for creating alignment with the stakeholder. The options follow the PAINT acronym, that is, persuade, appeal, for example, appeal to their ideals, values, visibility, ambition, etc. Involve, negotiate, for example, trade their time for something of value that you can offer, perhaps a bottle of wine. Or tell. Tell means that we just tell the stakeholder how it's going to be. This is the least effective, but is sometimes the most appropriate. For example, if there is an urgent safety or legal issue, negotiating or appealing wouldn't be a very good approach.
And the last element on the form is the vehicle. We've identified a broad strategy, but the vehicle gets a little more specific. Options in this field are formal updates, informal updates, share documentation, or involve in relevant team meetings. With this information populated by the team for all critical stakeholders, we can now move on to developing specific messages for each.
So before we move to part 2 of the template, we'd like to discuss the importance of creating intentional messages for each stakeholder group. Spending the time up front to engage your stakeholders is so much better, more efficient and more effective than waiting until the time when you're ready to implement your new solution. Considering the experiences, the assumptions, the preferences, and the knowledge of your stakeholders will allow you to have a much higher quality of communication.
And it can be very helpful to put some thought into understanding your specific audience. You know, people have their own preferences or ways of working, just as organizations tend to have their own culture or personality. There are a lot of models out there that study personalities and preferences, and we're going to provide you just a simple view that can be very helpful to target your specific audiences.
Two people can look at the same thing and yet both of them see something different. Your unique view is formed by your own individual perceptions and beliefs. If you can understand where these perceptions and beliefs come from, you can then begin to understand why other people see things differently. By understanding people, you can begin to appreciate who they are and improve your relationships and communications with them. All preferences have equal value, and everyone will use all 4 styles to varying degrees. It is the unique preference and degrees of your energies which will shape your personal style.
For most people, there's a preference for 1 or 2 styles in a particular that will indicate their dominant or preferred style of thinking, decision-making, interacting, working, and communicating. Each style has both strengths and weaknesses, and none is better or worse than the other. We tend to find our opposites incredibly difficult, but if we're aware of the different styles, we can value the differences and build more effective relationships.
We won't get into the technical detail or assessment here. However, we'll provide a summary that may be helpful for your stakeholder communications. The planning preference, we can call the blue sky. Prefers planning, preparation, evaluating, progress with checklists, seeing and understanding the details. The action style, we can call the fire, prefers getting tasks done, achieving due dates and knowing who's responsible.
The people style, we'll call them the grassroots. They're focused on teams, making sure that everyone's included and that the team is engaged. And the inspiration style, they're the sunshine. They're focused on innovation and creativity, ideas, optimism. They have a real we can do it attitude and motivation.
Gotta love the sun. People with a preference for blue sky style are introverted and have a desire to know and understand the world around them. They prefer written communication in order to maintain clarity and precision, and they have a strong desire for analysis. If we are talking about an organizational culture, the Blue Sky organization is a very formalized and structured place to work. Procedures govern what people do. The leaders pride themselves on being good coordinators and organizers who are efficient-minded. Maintaining a smooth running organization is most critical. Formal rules and policies hold the organization together. The long-term concern is on stability and performance with efficient, smooth operations. Success is defined in terms of dependable delivery, smooth scheduling, and low cost. The management of employees is concerned with secure employment and predictability.
So how does this style approach change management? Well, they prefer disciplined processes and monitoring. They prefer to clarify and apply the steps for analysis, along with a structured approach to develop solutions. And for project updates, this style prefers facts and data on progress on a regular and ongoing basis. People with a preference for the fiery style are extroverted and have very high energy. They're action-oriented and always in motion. They'll approach others in a direct, authoritative manner, radiating a desire for power and control. The fiery organization is a results organization whose major concern is with getting the job done. They're competitive and goal-oriented. The leaders are hard drivers, producers, competitors. They're tough and demanding. The glue that holds this organization together has an emphasis on success. The long-term focus is on competitive actions and achievement of measurable goals and targets.
The approach to change management for these guys are celebrate success, keep objectives front and center, and acknowledge quick wins. For project updates, they prefer to learn from mistakes, share successes and quick wins, and focus on action items and getting them done in time.
Individuals with a preference for the green style focus on values and depth in relationships. They want to make sure that others can rely on them. They prefer diplomatic relations that value the individual and are personal in style. They have a strong desire for understanding. The grassroots organization is a really friendly place to work, where people share a lot of themselves. It's kind of like an extended family. The leaders, or the heads of the organization, are considered more to be mentors and perhaps even parent figures. The organization is held together by loyalty or tradition. Commitment is very high. The organization emphasizes on the long-term benefit of human resource development and attaches great importance to cohesion of the team and morale. Success is defined in terms of sensitivity to customers and concern for people in general. The organization places a premium on teamwork, participation, and consensus.
So on the change management side for these guys, they focus on making sure that everyone is valued for their contribution. They value diversity. They lead by example, which is an important aspect of change management. For them, using persuasion and appealing to the values and greater good, showing that the change will provide a good value, is key. Project updates are best with small focus groups and should include a good focus on the effect on people. People with a preference for the sunshine style are strongly extroverted, radiant, and friendly. They are usually positive and concerned with good human relations. They will approach others in a persuasive, diplomatic manner, radiating a desire for sociability. The Sunshine Organization is a dynamic, entrepreneurial, and creative place to work. People stick their necks out and take risks. The leaders are considered innovators and risk takers. The bond that holds the organization together is commitment to experimentation and innovation. The emphasis is on being on the leading edge. The organization's long-term emphasis is on growth and acquiring new resources. Success means gaining unique and new products opportunities, and services. Being a product or service leader is important to them. The organization encourages individual initiative and freedom.
So what does this mean on the change management side? Well, they prefer to reinforce everybody working as a team, to be flexible with methods and structure, and to receive verbal feedback and updates. For project updates, we want to ensure that there are opportunities for others to give feedback before, during, and after. For the Sunshine stakeholders, we must give an even higher amount of attention to stakeholder engagement and morale. With an understanding of our stakeholders, we will prepare Part 1 or Page 1. This is our list of all stakeholders with the current information about their relation to the project. The yellow cells are free-form text, and the green cells indicate that there's a drop-down list to choose from. The fields included in this form are stakeholder name, relation to the project, current and desired view, drawbacks and opportunities. The next column is strategy. That's our general strategy for keeping them engaged, and it's based on the PAINT acronym. And the last column is vehicle. Options are formal updates, informal updates, share documentation, or include in relevant team meetings.
With a summary form completed, the team can continue to create the initial communication or message to each individual stakeholder. You can consolidate your messages as long as the stakeholders have the same point of view or perspective. This form provides the prompts to create a meaningful message targeted specifically to the stakeholder. The ability to get others in the organization to be enthusiastic about your project is a key to success, and our advice is to start building support early.
And your 1-point lesson for the stakeholder plan walks through the high-level steps to complete the summary and detailed level of info. As you may have already wondered, your stakeholder management plan is a confidential team document and should not be shared outside the team. And we have to be sensitive and diplomatic when using the information. For example, we don't go up to someone and say, "Hey, our team has identified you as a major negative stakeholder. We want to know how to get you positive. Can I buy you a drink?" It's really a helpful method when used properly. But like all other Lean Six Sigma tools, as the saying goes, a fool with a tool is still a fool.
Now for your application, you can use your project or another example to complete a stakeholder plan for the skills demonstration portion of your certification. Take a few moments now to review your notes and prepare properly for a quiz on this chapter on stakeholders. It has been our sincere pleasure being with you through this part of the training, and we thank you for your dedication to creating a better workplace and an environment that you can truly enjoy.